Greetings, YouTube. I recently had a dream concerning my grandparents. That in and of itself isn't unusual. I've dreamed about my grandparents hundreds of times over the course of my life, um, from when I was a child and then long after they're passed, like now. And in the past, almost always the dreams took place in one of their homes, either the home my father grew up in or the home that my mother grew up in the same town, within easy walking distance of each other. I know, I used to walk that distance as a child. Um, but the dream I had recently was unusual in that the two homes were melded. So it was this amalgamation of both of the homes. And the homes were drastically different. My father's home had been two essentially very narrow corporate buildings designed to house miners. So they're very, very narrow. And my grandfather had bought two of them and knocked the wall out and turned it into one home. And even then, it was very kind of like almost like two very narrow duplexes that had been put together, top bottom on both sides. And my mother's home was much more traditional. Had a big porch, first floor, parlor, which was the dining room, which what they used as basically the television room, and kitchen and upstairs was all bedrooms, and the attic was where my grandfather's drum set was. But they were very traditional. I had a garden in the backyard, and both had gardens, but the one my mother's family had was a little more traditional in size and shape. My father's backyard was full of roses. His mother was the head of the rose community, the Rose Club, the garden club in the city. I'm sure that it may have just dried up and disappeared when she finally passed. But she had like 7 different varieties of roses in her backyard, and a backyard probably only twice the size of my office. Um, and in the dream, it was different. It was different when I was dealing with my grandparents. First of all, it mostly had to do with my paternal grandfather and my maternal grandmother, so my mother's mother and my father's father. And their spouses were very much literally in the background, almost kind of grayed out. So they were not involved in this, though they were present in the dream. And in the dream, I was looking at these people through the eyes of a stranger. I was looking at these people without the veil of nostalgia, without the seasoning of a lifetime of loving them. And I still love them. I was looking at them critically in a way I had never done before. And the reality is that my father's father and my mother's mother were both hardcore racists. Now, my mother's mother was a very uptight, proper Catholic woman. One of those people more Catholic than the Pope. So she would never have publicly displayed her racism, but it was there, and I know it was there. But my father's father was a lot saltier, being an abusive, raging alcoholic, and his racism was very overt. And both of them essentially didn't view black people as people. They saw them as less than human. I don't know their positions on how Latina or Asian people, or Latinx, actually Latinx is the proper term, or Asian people were viewed, but it probably wasn't positive. I can remember him saying chink at least once in my life. And I was kind of just stood back and thought about it, and yeah, in the context of the dream, even though I'm having the dream, I often have lucid dreams. I'm kind of in the background going, yeah, that was how they were. And I really saw them in the harsh light of reality. And while I did not confront them with this when I was younger, even though I was an adult, well, at least 3 of them were still alive, I did not ever confront my grandparents about their racial issues. Even my other grandparents, the ones that aren't the overt racists, still had some racist concepts, but to a far lesser degree. Uh, they would have been viewed as progressive for the 1940s and 50s, even though today we would not see them that way. Even though I never confronted them, I always kind of knew it was there. But my white privilege let me ignore it. It didn't affect me. My wonderfully warm memories of my grandparents let me overlook the horrible things they said and did to people that weren't white. But here's the thing. My grandparents are dead. They are no longer hurting people. My ability to ignore what they did is something I'm trying not to do now. I'm not ignoring what white people in the world are doing, and in particular, specific white people in America. And there are a whole lot of white people in America right now that are hurting others. They are actively and overtly hurting others. And there's a whole lot more of them that are passively endorsing and supporting their racism and their bigotry by not calling them on it, by shrugging it off, by letting the veil of emotion and nostalgia blind them to what their fellow Americans, their fellow family members are saying and doing. And the doing is the really horrible part. The saying thing is ugly. But the actions they take, the votes they cast, the policies they endorse, those are the ugly, horrible things that are going to hurt other people, that are going to oppress other people, that are going to limit other people's options in life, and are going to cost human lives in America. Emmett Till is back on the news at the moment because the woman that accused him has finally recanted what she had said. But there's going to be a whole lot more Emmett Tills in America, thanks to the current white nationalist, neo-Nazi atmosphere that we are experiencing. And I know that my dreams are me often processing things from the real world, the current world. While I can let my grandparents pass on their racism because they're now dead, I cannot let my fellow white Americans pass because they are currently and actively harming